I'm ready.
Just want to make sure you're ready, brother.
Show me the money.
Oh, you didn't know?
Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling.
Put my shoes on, you wouldn't last a mile.
Summertime, wintertime, I'm on the grind. Yeah, I got the ring, I'm the champ, I'm the genie of the lamp.
This is the gift I was given, so I just live by my hustle.
It don't make sense, but don't make a profit. It's all a hustle, ladies and homies. Make money, money, money.
Called out here for a pill. When he tryna get this money for the real.
I want to find a thing to save my life, so I hustle.
It ain't over for me. No, it ain't over for me.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Show me the money!
Okay, let's go smoke that joint.
What up? What up?
What's up, everyone?
What's going on, everybody?
We made it. 2020 season's officially over. We're getting into the playoffs, but we can't leave without having our award show. This is the first annual Hustler Awards, and it is going to go down every year. It is going down. I got a couple homies in here. Brian, why don't you tell everybody where to find you at?
Mostly I stay on the Twitterverse. I didn't realize there's a whole Twitterverse out there, but it's pretty much just Brian Turner 1989 is my personal handle. Brian Turner Football Guy is like my fantasy handle. Pretty much I stay on there, kind of read up on all the off season and all the during the season, kind of all the what's going on and stuff. So that's pretty much where I stay.
All right, and then we got special guest here, my man, Corey, someone who I've known for a few months now, kind of back towards the beginning of the season, just someone who is the man in the fantasy community, not necessarily a fantasy, expert or whatever, but someone who I respect a lot because he's doing what I used to do a lot in a group that is now up to 18,000 members, taking questions and answers from everybody, and super stoked to have you on, bro.
No, yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, Alex. It's been a long process trying to get me on here. It's been a few months I was trying to get on here, but yeah, you guys can find me. I'm also on Instagram, just personal handles, just at asap.corey, 2 Y's for Corey. And then I'm in the Facebook group with Alex too, the fantasy, I don't know the official name, but just the fantasy football for gurus, experts, and beginners. Like if you guys want to hit me up, any fantasy questions down the line next season or whatever, Dynasty Leagues, I got you guys.
There we go. Yeah. So if you're not in the group right now, it is fantasy football advice for experts, gurus, and beginners. And it took me a long time to remember like that in that exact order to where it's just natural. I'm going to throw this link in the chat right now for everybody because we are growing. We're up to almost 18,000 members now. It is growing all the time. And before we get into everything, one thing that I'm excited to announce right now, our channel is doing a raffle for a PlayStation 5. I'm super excited. We already got it in stock. I was able to secure one last week and pick it up. It's behind the green screen here. It's just huge, so I'm not going to put it up here. But yeah, we're doing raffle tickets for $20. We're probably going to sell around 100 raffle tickets or so I don't want to make it to where it's like impossible to win. But yeah, that's something I'm super excited about. Just shoot me a DM on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at FFHustler420. I'm going to throw my link in here where you can pretty much find me everywhere on the internet. But yeah, you guys want to support the channel and then at the same time get a chance to win a PlayStation 5, brand new in the box, never used. Hit me up because it's going to be going all month. I'm going to be doing the raffle at the end of the month sometime. I don't know the exact date yet. All right, let's see who's up in here right now. Antonio, he's up in the building, repping the 420 crew. What up, Antonio?
He was listening last time I was on.
And Antonio is always here. He's the man. He's the man. He's always here and ready to smoke. And my man Trent, what up, bro? So met Trent a little bit earlier today, and he's repping the fantasy dudes. That's what's up. So yeah, go give them a follow. I know they're more of a podcast. I don't think they're on YouTube just yet, But the fantasy football dudes, go check them out where you can get your podcasts. And Ruben up in the building, another member of the 420 crew. He said, thanks so much for the grind. Hell yeah, bro. Appreciate you for always being here on the live streams. And my man Steven, Steven is always here supporting, throwing in super chats. He's on every live stream. So yeah, Steven, you are the man. And he said, bro, I just want to thank you for helping me win 2 championships. You are the man, and I'm here to stay. Hell yeah, bro. Appreciate it. Oh, appreciate the support, Steven. There's so many times I would start the live stream and a super chat donation would come in from Steven. That just gets me pumped, for the whole show. So I appreciate that. Let's see. Who else is up in here? Got one more up in here. Will, what up? What up? What is going down, bro? All right. So we're not taking questions and answers, obviously, but we do like input from everybody. So we're going to be, in a couple minutes, we're going to be starting off, reading off our awards. I believe we have 19 or 20 that we're going to be doing. So we're going to be here for, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours or so. Before we get into all that, throw some chats in there. I want to know who won a Hustler title this year. Throw it in the chat. And I'm going to kick it to Corey first. Give a little synopsis on the 2020 season, good, bad, the ugly. What was your take on the 2020 season just in general?
I mean, honestly, for the most part, the first round, you're talking guys like Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook. For the most part, most of them showed up. I mean, there wasn't in terms of running backs, like they're always those top ones, but there weren't really true busts. It was mostly just hindered by injuries, like a lot of injuries this year. You got McCaffrey, you got like Kenny Galladay was one of my guys that I lost. He was just so inconsistent. Like most of the guys you expected to balled out if it wasn't for an injury. So I wouldn't say like, if anything, it wasn't that surprising. I mean, injuries were definitely a big thing, but in terms of production, if they're on the field, you got what you got, especially if you had McCaffrey for those 2 weeks.
For sure. Adam Schefter, he said that week 2, that was like the most injuries and like big time injuries that he's ever seen in his life happen in one day. So that just shows you like how the 2020 season kind of started off on the shitty. I mean, CMC went down week 2. At least it was at the end of it. He got to play. Barkley went down week 2. That was tough. Brian, minus the injuries, what's your synopsis on the 2020 season?
Even though it was like crazy with all the COVID and stuff, it was still pretty much just like every other season that you have. Lots of injuries, obviously, but you had the come from behind wins. You had the teams that just dominated. You had the teams that sucked. It's pretty normal. You had your big time players coming back. Some careers might be over in the next few months, and we'll see about that. So pretty much just standard business. It was great season. You saw some epic games. You saw some dudders. It's pretty standard. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. You know what I mean? Last second wins, last second losses. It's everything you could ever imagine and want in a football season.
Yeah. The one thing that I like the new playoff format. How it's 7 teams instead of 6, and then there's only 1 bye week team instead of 2. Like that just made it way more fun. There's going to be 6 games that are happening this weekend instead of 4, and only 1 team. Like now you really had to work to get that bye, and
right.
Super valuable now, more valuable than ever. I would say my synopsis on the year is it is a quarterback driven league. There were so many damn weeks that if you play in a 1 quarterback league, I mean, there's so much money just like on the bench or on free agent waiver wire that's just getting wasted. I think everybody needs to make a point of next season when you're getting in leagues, do super flex leagues or 2 QB leagues. Like 1 QB leagues need to be like out the window unless it's like a 16 team league or something like that. We're just seeing nothing but passing out there. And maybe it was because guys like Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley and stuff went down, but I don't know. It seems like every year it just becomes more of a pass-heavy league than the year before with pretty much every team in the league. It doesn't even matter.
No, definitely. I agree with that 100%, Alex. I mean, guys like, I mean, I play in a 12-team league. Actually, this year I played 14-team league, but you had guys like Kirk Cousins, and I know Carson Wentz was a stinker for most of the part, but until he got benched for Wentz, like he wasn't a terrible fantasy option. Like he was still top 20, top 25, like in a 2 QB league, he's a tremendous asset. I keep thinking about that trade you made with that one guy you trade raped, man. You were like, give me Chris Godwin, I'll give you Dwayne Haskins and Zach Pascal. Like, I mean, before Dwayne Haskins, like he's a valuable asset. So, like you said, passing league, like all these quarterbacks are just insane. Like especially Herbert too. Like we'll get into the rookies later, but yeah, that was just quarterbacks are 100%.
Man,
you can tell the bad ones really will screw you up. You know what I mean? You get a bad performance from one of your QBs, like one of those Cam Newton 9-point games or whatever that he did, and fuck, you ain't gonna win that game. You know what I mean? Like, so
Cam Newton definitely was like, he tricked us. Like the first couple games, like I think about that Seattle game where he was amazing, and then
he looked great.
Just like after he got injured or he got COVID, I think, where he sat out against the Chiefs, he just fell off after that. So it's just crazy. Like we'll talk about the Bills and Patriots later, but that last game too was just an embarrassment.
It was like those 2 rushing touchdowns. I'm pretty sure it was that game, that 2 rushing touchdown. Maybe he had a passing touchdown, and everybody thought that he was going to be the shit. And man, I think everybody reminded us why Tom Brady was okay leaving the Patriots. Like they fucking have no weapons out there, like at all.
And they're even worse this year than they were last year when it comes to weapons, because at least Edelman played most of last year, played like 3 games this year.
Yeah. And then you talk about like their defense, like missing like half of their players, like due to sitting out for COVID. Like, I don't know. I bet the morale, like you hear Tom Brady talk about how it's not fun to be a New England Patriot. Like you're coming to work, it's never like fun. And he was excited to go to Tampa Bay where he said he was like having fun. It had to be like the worst type of like mental grind to play on the New England Patriots. Like they're already strict as hell. And like now you're talking about COVID. Like, I don't know. I just see Belichick like just being like totally hated by his entire team right now.
Especially if you're not winning, like if you're not going to win, being strict and playing everything like by the book and being, like regimented. No one likes that if you're losing. You know what I mean? That only works when you're like the best team for 20 years,
That's why I'm surprised they signed Cam Newton, or at least Cam Newton was like able to get a job there, because Bill Belichick's the strictest person. And you can honestly put Cam Newton in like one of the top 5 most like laid back. Like he's not a grinder. He's never been a grinder. It feels like in Carolina, like he was always getting in trouble, or he was always just like inconsistent, where Belichick would be the first guy to kick somebody out for that. But it seemed like he was desperate because he knew Jared Stidham was nothing.
Yeah, Jared Stidham was terrible. Is terrible.
He would have been smarter to go after someone like Jameis Winston. I mean, I know that he hates like interceptions, and that's probably like the thing that he wants to like destroy anybody if they create a turnover. But I mean, what do you guys think? Like, who would have been better for like the New England Patriots? Like, I think Jameis Winston would have been the better pick, and I think they both cost around the same amount of money. Like, neither one of them were big contract guys.
I'll take Cam all day over Jameis. I can't handle the turnovers, Cam, if you give him anyone, I'm assuming he would be a lot better. I feel like if they went with Jared Stidham, they might have won like 2 or 3 games the whole year. I know they didn't win very many with Cam, but when Jacoby Myers is your best offensive weapon, that's not a good it's not a good sign. It's going to be hard to win.
Yeah.
Personally, that's what I think.
Antonio says Winston. What do you think, Corey, between the two?
I mean, honestly, I kind of lean Cam Newton just because I take the rushing ability, because if you'd say, like, I'd say Winston's definitely a better passer, but I think Winston's legs just put it over the top for him. And plus you do get no turnovers, like Brian said. So I would take Newton, but it's definitely a little bit close. But either way, I don't think they would have made the playoffs with either quarterback. So I think they'd be in the same place they were no matter who they had. Maybe a little bit worse with Winston, but I don't think either or they definitely wouldn't have put them in a contention with division title, especially with Miami's improvements too.
Right. I think Bill Belichick took Miami for granted. I mean, that's what I kind of think, because I mean, with the set, I think that he thought they could have snuck in as one of the, wild cards there. And Miami totally fucked that up because Miami was the shit this year. That they're pissed, like watching, Washington make it and watching the Bears make it with their records. But AFC was tough this year.
I mean, I know it's been the talk of NBA like for years where, the East is always worse than the West. So should it be the top 16 teams? But should the NFL go about that too, where it's like no matter what conference you're in, do you just take the top 14 teams, or you have to go 7 East, 7 AFC, 7 NFC? Like, what do you guys think about that?
I like the divisions. I like rivalries. I read a tweet recently that says like nobody cares about the rivalries, and like I'm on the opposite end of that spectrum. Like I love watching Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I love watching, even when they're shitty. Like watching Dallas and Washington is fun because if they're both shitty, it's still a good game. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, 100%, yeah.
I personally,
no matter how bad the team is, like the team will come to play if they're playing their rival. 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Even when Chicago, Green Bay, that's like a great game. Even when most of the time Chicago's not very good.
Yeah, I mean,
Minnesota, Green Bay, those are good games.
Everybody will come to play unless you're Doug Peterson. You're not going to come to play.
I think, and I'll get back to the divisions, but I think them pulling Hurts just means that Carson Wentz is out the door.
Oh, 100%.
That's what I think. Like they know what they got in him. They didn't need to see him for the last half of football. They wanted to see what they have in their future backup. So I think that Hurts getting pulled just means that Wentz is like already out the door.
It'll be interesting to see where he goes in the offseason because there's some big landing spots where he could go where he could probably be pretty legit. San Francisco, Indianapolis. I'm sure he'd be pretty legit in those two spots,
Maybe even the Patriots. Who the hell knows?
That would be a good one. So there's some landing spots out there for him, I think, that are pretty. Even though I don't think he's the greatest, but he's definitely able to get a chance to start somewhere for sure.
Yeah, and I like the divisions. I mean, I think that basketball. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of a point there, but I don't know. With football, I think the way that it is and the way they expanded it to 7 teams. I mean, I don't know if it's perfect necessarily. I mean, NFC isn't always super garbage. I mean, it just seems like they're either the best division or the worst division. It's super weird, like how it fucking works in the NFC East. But I mean, this is probably the first time that we've ever seen a team with, an under 500 record. I don't know. The NFC just as a whole, they had a lot of injuries. Like, I think that, San Francisco, their entire team freaking got injured by like week 4. So I think things like that probably made it to where maybe it's a topic of conversation. But I don't know. I think the divisions, that's the way to stay. And the 7 teams per division in the playoffs, like that seems way better to me than 6.
I think so. And it's never mind. Never mind. We'll talk about that later.
Going off of the expansion, it makes fantasy better because if we had the top 2 seeds getting buys in the conference, Aaron Rodgers isn't playing on week 16 because he's already locked up that bye. So now you have your studs for 1 extra week. And then you have teams like the Bears, let's say, like if you had Allen Robinson or whatever. Allen Robinson, they have something to play for to make it into the playoffs. So it's just extra motivation for those players that are just going to show out in your lineups. So it's 1 more week you have with those guys.
We love that. And I've never played in fantasy playoff leagues where it's like through the NFL playoffs. But because the player pool was bigger this year, I decided to start it. So I ended up starting a bunch of leagues. I'm curious to see how they end up shaping out. But before only having 4 games like each week, like I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's going to be much fun because there's not that many players, and we got a bunch of 12-team leagues filled up. So I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm one of those.
And Antonio said, "Can we make our dynasty league a super draft?" Hell yeah, bro! I do not start any leagues that are like 1 QB leagues. I hate it. There's too many good quarterbacks to play in a 1 QB league. So yeah, we're definitely starting our dynasty league up soon, and it will be super flex. And Samuel asked earlier if I needed a cough drop. No, I'm good. Just need a drink of water. Let's see. Reminder: Dak Prescott had more receiving touchdowns than Michael Thomas this past year, despite playing fewer games.
That's a great stat.
And D Nice says, "Where's the money at this weekend, boys? Man, it is tough."
I haven't looked at the lines.
I haven't.
I'm gonna check them out.
Yeah, let's pull those up because I'm kind of curious. Joe No, what up, bro? Says, what do you guys think will happen with Wentz? I think that he is out of Philadelphia. This question was left a couple minutes ago when we were talking about him. I think he's out. I think Corey agreed with me. Brian, what do you think? You think Wentz is out of Philly next year?
I can't imagine them keeping him. You know, why would you take on that huge salary for somebody who you might not believe is the dude when you think the other guy is the dude? It really becomes, it doesn't even become like a matter of if you think he can play or not. It's like, do you think the other guy is going to eat into his time? Well, then you shouldn't be paying him all of that money. If you have two good quarterbacks, that means you don't have one good quarterback. I just think he's mad. They clearly are trying to move on without him. There's going to be somebody willing to take on the contract because he's going for like what the standard, starting quarterback goes for. And so, I still think he's better than people like Jimmy G. I think he's better than Mitch Trubisky, and they're getting starting reps. One of them's getting starting reps in the playoffs. One of them last year started a Super Bowl game, so there's opportunities that, Indianapolis, we don't know what's going to happen with old man Rivers, so if you give him a great offensive line, he could be pretty good probably. So do I think he's, the greatest quarterback ever? No. Do I think he deserves a chance to start somewhere? I do.
Yeah, I don't think he's a complete bust or anything. I mean, Philly, they're pretty bad. I mean, it takes Hurts running it 15 times a game to be able to, do anything with that team. So, I mean, that's a lot to ask from anyone.
Right.
Oh, we got Trent J said, I like crabs more than Jameis. I don't know about that, man. I don't know. How many crab legs have you stolen in your life? And Jono said Winston for sure. He got the LASIK surgery in the offseason. I forgot about that.
I will say, though, we all thought Winston was going to start for Drew once he popped his lung and stuff. I think it's, really telling that they weren't even willing to give him a start over Taysom Hill. And, Taysom Hill played well and stuff. But, again, do we think Taysom Hill – if we had asked that question 2 months ago, do we think Taysom Hill is a better player than Jameis Winston? Everyone would have said no. But then he goes in there. They don't even give Jameis a chance to start. And there was 10 passes that he threw in that one half. He looked horrendous. I think Winston's 2 thumbs down, in my opinion.
I just saw Ruben's comment. You think the Saints are going to stay with Taysom? I think they're going to give him a shot, at least for next year, because what Brian said about how they didn't go to Winston, they went to Taysom. I think the reason why they went to Taysom Hill was because they've already seen what Winston had in Tampa Bay. Taysom Hill's never gotten that shot as the number one quarterback. So this Drew Brees injury gave him a chance to see what they have in him. And he wasn't terrible. I mean, he definitely played better in the last couple of games than he did the first couple of games. But I think they at least give him a shot for next season. What do you guys think? I mean, I don't think they trust Winston enough. They've already seen what he is in Tampa Bay. I just don't think Winston's ever going to get another starting shot anywhere, in my opinion.
Here's why I think everything played out the way that it did. Can you guys tell me how much Taysom Hill makes per year without looking at Google?
It's maybe he got $12 million a year or something like that. He got a $3 million three-year contract for 12 a year or something like that.
Do you remember how much Jameis got paid?
It was 2 or something, right?
$1 million. So if you would have asked me at the beginning of the season if Drew Brees went down, who would be the first guy up, I would say Taysom Hill, because you got to follow the money. They didn't give him all this money not to give him a shot if it came about.
Right.
Will he be the starter next year? I have no idea, because I don't know what if this is the last year on his contract or not. But I feel like the way that it happened with Teddy Bridgewater last year, going 5-0, I think that they were just confident enough to know that if Drew Brees went down for a couple games, that they're smart enough to get a few wins.
And that's why Winston's not the answer, because really in all these situations, the only thing you cannot do is turn the ball over 3 times a game. And he will literally turn the ball over 3 times in a game.
How many pick sixes did he throw last year? Like 8 or 9? Like something fucking crazy like that? That's so many points that he gave up, like to the opposing team, like making his defense just look like shit on paper.
Right. And again, like, Tom Brady had a great year, but really he threw 10 more touchdown passes than Jameis, but he threw 25 or something like that less interceptions. That's more than 1 a game. That's just ridiculous. It's, literally he's throwing the ball away 3 times a game. That's just ridiculous in my opinion.
David, what up, bro? Another one of the members of the 420 crew in the building. And we're going to get into our awards here in a couple minutes. We got a lot of comments in here now, so I just like interacting. Oh, and Antonio, we were talking about the Patriots earlier. He said they should have picked up Mike Smith, and they would have won the Super Bowl. Hell yeah, hell yeah. And let's see, who else? Antonio said Wentz maybe to Washington. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know
who Washington's quarterback will be next year. I mean, it's definitely not Kyle Allen. Maybe they keep Alex Smith for next year, just another transition year, just build up their young guys. Chase Young, another year under his belt, just.
That team is nice. They could be like the Giants of like 2007 or whatever. Like, because I mean, their defense is what is like winning them pretty much every single game. The Giants, they had probably one of the best front fours in history. Those times when they beat the Patriots. Right now, Washington has 4 first-round draft picks as their front four. Like, it's pretty insane.
Good ones, not like bust first-round draft picks either. Like,
no,
like Sweat is good. Chase Young is good. Daron Payne is good. Can't remember the other guy, but
he was a first-round pick, and we know.
Right. Was it Kerrigan, or is he considered a linebacker?
He's a linebacker, I think. There's someone else who's a D tackle, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Betting lines for next week. I forgot who mentioned it in the comments, but
Tampa
Bay is an 8.5 favorite. I mean, I know Tom Brady's a GOAT, and I know Tom Brady is, like amazing in the playoffs. But I mean, you're giving Washington. If Tampa Bay wins by a touchdown, you still got that bet. So if you take Washington and the points, like that's something to think about. I mean, I know Tom Brady was amazing the last 4 games, but you got to remember it was against the Falcons, it was against the Lions, and I forget who the last game was. It the Vikings? But he wasn't playing like amazing defenses. So I'm not saying those numbers were like fraud or anything, but Washington might keep it closer than we think. I still like Tampa Bay outright, but that's something to think about.
And Tampa Bay, they're not going to have Devin White. So literally going to be down one of their best defensive players as well. So that's got to just mean good things for the Washington offense.
And Tampa Bay's defense, I mean, it was very good at the beginning of the year, but it started to tail off at the end of the year. And Alex Smith, he's getting more comfortable, like it could be a single possession game. Like I said, Tampa Bay by a touchdown, you still got that bet. So
8.5.
I don't like to bet on playoff games. Just I know it's a different game than the regular season, but something to think about it for the bettors out there at least.
Yeah.
8.5 is a large point spread for a playoff game. Even with the record disparity like that, that's a big one. I know they played earlier in the season, right? Do we remember like the results of the Washington Tampa Bay game earlier in the season? Just whoop on them. It might have been early in the season where they just beat the shit out of them.
They didn't play. The Buccaneers only played the Giants out of the East. And remember that Monday night game, like the Giants were a 2-point conversion away from sending it to overtime.
It was pretty close. So we'll see. Alex Smith is just not – I've never been a believer of Alex Smith. He won't lose you a game per se, but like he's never going to like win you games.
I like Alex Smith because he's a San Diego native. And it's crazy. Him and Reggie Bush played on the same high school team at the same time. They were destroying fools.
I can't even imagine.
And let's see. So here, Ruben has a question. I think the Falcons have the 4th or 5th pick, something like that. Are they picking a QB? And also, are they trading Julio? I think they're going to ride Julio all the way. What do you guys think about Julio and their first pick potentially?
Well, I don't think Matt Ryan is the problem. I don't think that like getting a good new shiny young quarterback is going to make the Atlanta Falcons like win 12 games in a season. They need running back, they need defensive linemen, they need linebackers, cornerbacks, DBs, just, 11 new defensive starters, I think is what they need before they, besides their D tackle Grady. Like I can't, they don't have that many standout defensive players. They don't even have that many standout offensive players. They have Calvin Ridley, they have Matt Ryan, and they have Julio. Again, I don't think Matt Ryan's the issue. I think they very well could get a quarterback because when you're on a new franchise who's building new, wants to change, how you change is by getting a new quarterback. But I wouldn't go that route personally.
I'm with you, Brian. Like, I don't think Matt Ryan's the problem. I mean, I definitely don't think he's definitely past his prime. Like, he's never taken you back to the Super Bowl. But I don't think at 4 or 5, I don't think there's any guy there that I think is going to take you to the Super Bowl either, So you might as well go with the proven guy, Matt Ryan. And like you said, just get better at positions that you need as well. Like, do they need a quarterback? Could they improve? Yes, but I don't think there's any better options out there. And plus, you have to remember Matt Ryan's price tag too. Like, who's going to take on that contract anyway? So that's something to think about too, the money situation.
Yeah, he's 35. I mean, probably when it gets closer to the end of his contract, like maybe he might have like 2 years left. I don't know exactly, but yeah, I don't know if they're going to. You definitely got to believe that someone is going to take over for Ryan if you're going to draft him. And I don't know. I think they'd be smart to probably go after a wide receiver, another skill position. Their defense is getting better. I mean, they do have some young stars like on that defense. Like they started off slow, but AJ Terrell, their corner, I mean, he's been coming on. Foy Olakun and Deion Jones in the middle. I mean, those guys are savages. Like
Jones is pretty good,
but their front line
is really good.
Their front line isn't that good. That's where
no pass rushers.
Yeah, that's where a lot of their fails are coming from.
Yeah.
Jono said, "You think Mariota will ever start again?" I don't know. I don't think so. He's not that accurate, and it just seems like he's more of like the gadget, type QB that people would label him because he seems like more of a running QB. When he was in Tennessee, he made guys like Corey Davis suck. And like, his tight ends were bosses, and then the one game he comes in, doesn't throw to the wide receivers, like throws it to Darren Waller like a million times. Like, I don't know. I don't see him being any more than a backup, like maybe journeyman at this point.
I would agree. He just doesn't throw it that great, He's just not that good at throwing the ball. And I don't know. He deserves a backup job. He's good enough to be a backup somewhere. But, like if people are talking like Cam Newton is done, which a lot of people say, I wouldn't even, sniff Mariota's direction if that was like the case, I don't know. I'm a Cam guy. I love Cam, So I don't know if people are talking shit on Cam, like he's done and he's in and he's over with. You're going to give Marcus Mariota like chances to start. Like, I don't see it personally.
Yeah. And let's see. What do you think about this, Corey? Ruben said Cam Newton to Washington with the comeback with Rivera.
I don't think there's a chance. I mean, because Kyle Allen got signed before Cam Newton. So if Rivera really wanted Cam Newton, he could have already had him. And plus, I just feel like Cam Newton, I feel like he would rather have – Cam Newton's 100% better than Kyle Allen, but I'd rather have Kyle Allen as my backup because I feel like Cam Newton's one of those guys where it's like he kind of has a big ego, and I feel like he wouldn't take a backup role. Like, he would take it because it's just money, but I feel like he would just cause more problems being a backup, in my opinion. He's a locker room problem when he's not a starter, is how I'd say it.
Right. And again, like, his mentality is he's going to try and start. I don't know if he's going to go anywhere where he's going to be the clear-cut backup. He's like, no, like, I'm going here because I think I'm going to whoop on Mitch Trubisky, That's why the Bears didn't sign him in the first place, because they were like, we don't want, anything to go on with that kind of stuff. We'd rather take Nick Foles, who we hope Mitch Trubisky can beat him out. No one's ever going to be like, I think Mitch Trubisky can beat out Cam Newton. I don't think that's ever come across anyone's lips ever.
Well, and I guess with Cam, it's like he's super, super talented, to where he does things that nobody else can do. You can't really teach someone how to do the things that he does and how to just be a ginormous human being and run over people.
Just a badass,
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, it seems for a backup QB, if you're going to go with a veteran, it's got to be someone who can teach the starter something too. At least that's my thoughts on it a little bit.
That's a good take, actually. He's never going to be able to teach anyone to be a physical monster like he is, He's like, when you can't read it, you just fucking run 5 yards and no one can tackle you. You know what I mean?
And like Corey said, he's not really a grinder, not someone who seems like, he relies on his talent a little bit more. I'm sure he puts in a lot of work, but I don't know. That's what it seems like to me. Who the hell knows? Antonio said, what do you think that the trash Jets do with the 2 pick?
What they should do, they should trade it for multiple picks. What they're probably going to do, because they're the Jets, is I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback, but they're just going to draft a good player, a top player. But I think they could definitely get a bunch of picks and then move down to if someone like Atlanta or someone like Carolina. I mean, Carolina's Bridgewater, but you never know. But someone like that who's willing to move up number 2 and drop down to 6 or 7, I would take 5 picks and I'll give you the number 2 pick. That's what they should do.
And I get
multiple first rounders for the number 2 overall pick. You can get your trade for the first rounder this year, and you can get a first rounder next year. Easy. Because that's the going rate for a quarterback stud who you want, either the stud quarterback or the stud pass rusher. They're worth 2 or 3 first round picks if you believe they are. That's the price. That's the price to move up.
And I know that there's no RG3 or Mitch Trubisky, who ended up probably being one of the worst second picks ever because of who got drafted after him. But I don't know though. I mean, Bears gave up a lot to get the number 2 pick.
I was moving up 1 spot.
And think about how much they got Washington paid for RG3 back in the day. I swear they gave up 3 first round picks 3 years in a row, plus multiple second picks or something crazy. But I don't know, that they should be looking for a price like that somehow, some way.
Man, RG3 rookie year, amazing. If he doesn't, I don't know if he tore his ACL or something in that wild card game against the Seahawks. We could be talking differently. Yeah, talking differently about him. Just ever since that injury, he hasn't been the same.
ACL and MCL on the same play.
Yeah.
Right.
Terrible.
Again, he was one of those guys who, he was just faster than everyone else at the time. I just have that image in my head where he just took off, maybe against Minnesota or something like that, did an 80-yard run. And he just was so fast, and that was the stamp on his MVP or his rookie MVP year. And he was just I just remember watching him being damn, this fool is ridiculously fast. You know what I mean? Just fucking passing everyone. So.
Yeah. What up, Donovan? Said, what up, go Browns? What's going to happen to OBJ? I did not like him in Cleveland. He went to Cleveland to I don't know. He got treated in Cleveland like Randy Moss got treated in the Raiders. It's just a move that did not make sense. That just was a waste of 2 years of his career.
I have no idea where he's going to go. He's not going to play for the Browns next year, but I have no idea where he's going to go.
I don't know. I think his best years are for sure behind him. I definitely think that. I don't know why the Browns don't. I don't know. They just are a run first team. Why would you ever bring in somebody like him, unless you're just going to run it 80% of the time and then just use him as just your go guy, which he's still effective at, but I don't know.
Flavius from Norway, what up, bro? Said MT bounce back in 2021. I mean, it all depends on who the quarterback is, and I don't think it's going to be Drew Brees. So, I mean, even if Taysom Hill was the QB, I mean, your whole philosophy should be to throw it to Michael Thomas like 10 to 15 times a game, and you should be okay.
Talent, I'm for sure going to buy his talent next year. I don't think he was just like a bum this year. I think he probably was hurt most of the time and then kind of was frustrated. He just never really got going. I would buy back, for the talent alone, especially the price is probably going to be a lot cheaper than you would expect to pay, he was the number 1, number 2 wide receiver taken off the board the last 2 or 3 years. He's not going to cost you that much next year. He's not going to cost you nearly as much. Personally, I don't think.
Not a 5th or 6th, overall pick. David said Cam's wardrobe alone put him out of the backup QB conversation. Hey, man, you're a star.
He draws too much attention to be a backup quarterback.
Yep. There you go. Bottom line, Cam has way too much talent and way too much style to be anyone who's backup anything. There we go. And Antonio said first year won me fantasy was RG3. The RG3. All right, this will be the last question. Then we'll start getting into the awards here. Who's everybody's pick for the Super Bowl match? I'm just gonna go with the people that everybody probably thinks it's gonna be, and I'm gonna say the Chiefs and the Packers because both of those teams' offenses are so damn good that I don't see anybody stopping them.
Man,
I'm gonna go next.
You go, Brian. Go, Brian.
I got the Chiefs. They're clearly probably the best team in the league. And then I had them in the very beginning of the year, and I'm going to stick with it. I had the Chiefs defeating the Saints in the Super Bowl. So that's what I'm going to roll with.
Man, you guys are all wrong. It's going to be Green Bay, and it's going to be Buffalo, man. Like,
love Buffalo.
The Bills are the hottest team going in the playoffs right now. Like, they've won like their last 3 or 4 games by 20+ points. Like, they're hot right now. Like, I know Patrick Mahomes is like best quarterback in NFL, like great in the playoffs, but it's Buffalo for me. Buffalo and Green Bay, and then I'll take Buffalo to win it all too. I'll double down on it too. So
Buffalo's legit. I was buying high on them. Josh Allen has gotten progressively better every year when you give him more talent. He took a huge leap when you gave him John Brown and Cole Beasley. What did you expect was going to happen when you gave him Stephon Diggs? And he just started dominating. I don't know if they're top to bottom the best team. I love Buffalo. Their offense is so legit, but they got embarrassed by Kansas City earlier in the year, didn't they? What was that ridiculous score? It was something ridiculous.
It was something ridiculous. Here's one thing that I'll say. I am rooting for the Bills to win. If there's a team that I'm saying I want to win, it's the Bills. And not really because I like the Bills. It's because of Bills Mafia. The crazy shit that they do on a random Sunday for no fucking reason at all is funny and viral.
Whoever started the jumping through the fire tables, you know what? It's a good idea. Let me jump through a table of fire.
I can only imagine the shit that they would do if they won a Super Bowl championship. Things that people would pay to watch, I'm sure. All right.
The games.
So here we go. We've been talking a lot, so we're just going to knock out some of these awards, and we're going to start our number 1 award here. First on the list, we are talking about clutch QB performance in the championship week. So these guys who might have won you a championship if you played them, or more than likely. So, Brian, you're going to be announcing the nominees. Go ahead and kick it.
All right. Starting with our first nominee, we have Deshaun Watson. He's a great player, up-and-coming guy. We got Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, and then Josh Allen. I think we all clearly know who's going to win this one. We did the polls on Twitter. All right, let's just get to it. And the winner is Josh Allen with 70% of the Twitter votes.
Everybody on this list killed it. If you played any of these 4 guys in your championship week, you are very happy. That is for sure.
And then Josh Allen had 4 TD passes versus the New England Patriots in Week 16. That's a good one. And, if you played those Week 17 championships, which I know a lot of people didn't, he got like 3 touchdown passes in the first half or something ridiculous like that. So in 6 quarters of football, he got 7 touchdown passes. That's a lot.
Jordan's up in the building. What up, bro? Shout out to the IDP Army and the IDP 1-2-3 scoring. I'm all about it, brother.
Man, and going on Josh Allen winning that award, it makes it that much sweeter that he won it on Monday because everyone who had Josh Allen was sweating going into Monday night.
I saw some crazy like Diggs him stacks. And you know what I mean? Like people on Twitter were just like, I was down like 75 points and I won. You know what I mean? Like, so
I usually post that like I'm down by 2,000, and then you had Josh Allen and Diggs, you won, man. Like,
right,
you won. So, and I feel bad for all those people that were going against Allen on Monday night, but anybody who I didn't have Allen, but it was sweet to watch it. Just everyone who had Monday, like you win the championship on Monday, standalone game, you're sweating Monday night, so. I thought that was pretty awesome too. And going against Belichick, who's the greatest defensive mastermind in football history, like that's even sweeter too.
And I know you guys see a whole bunch of like posts on social media. If like anybody wins on Monday night and like, oh, my kicker won it for me, like I'm so excited. Like to have like Josh Allen like in a championship week on Monday night, like pretty much the best feeling in the world. Like, right. Championship in that kind of style on Monday night.
I'd rather win on Monday night than like Sunday after Sunday morning's games. It just feels even sweeter at night. It feels even better in the last game of the week. Totally. It's good stuff.
Yep. Hell yeah, man. All right. So let's get into our second category, and we're gonna pump out these first 4. They are all clutch performers in the championship week, and we're talking week 16 championships. If you play in week 17 championships, I'm sorry for you. Change it up next year. You really should. So this one is going to be for running back, clutch performer in a championship week. And Corey, why don't you read off the nominees?
All right. Nominees for running back, clutch performer. We got David Johnson. We got Mr. 6 touchdown himself, Alvin Kamara, Myles Gaskin, and Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, we know it was Kamara. If you had Kamara, you already won your championship, unless you had Mike Evans going against you or something like that too. I know.
Against Josh Allen, huh?
Yeah, the guy in my league had Kamara and he lost the championship because the other guy had Mike Evans and he had Patrick Mahomes. So he didn't guarantee you a win, but he pretty much guaranteed 95% of people a win, I believe. Probably. So that was awesome to watch, though. And I think was it Christmas that he did that? Christmas, right?
Yep, it was. It was Christmas. So even sweeter, you got a Christmas miracle from Alvin Kamara.
6 touchdowns. That is a miracle. You know what I mean? That happens, every 5 to 10 years or something like that?
Not even. No, not even.
He was the first person, I think, to get 6 touchdowns since in the Super Bowl area, I think. So that had been like 19, what?
No Priest Holmes or anything like that back in the day?
So I forget who it was. It might have been someone on ESPN or maybe even Matthew Berry, but they talked about the all-time like highest points per game ever, and Alvin Kamara was the 3rd highest points per game ever. So yeah, only 2 people ever have done better than he just did on Christmas, and one of them was Jerry Rice.
And it happened to be in the Super Bowl championship playoff performance. That is just like the opposite spectrum of Josh Jacobs. You know what I mean? And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go out there. I'm going to win everyone a championship. Josh Jacobs is like getting DUIs and shitting on everyone's team and stuff.
Yep. And then Kamara got Breeze, son, the chip. All right. Let's get into our third one here. Wide receiver, clutch performer in the championship week. Talking about week 16 again. Brian, why don't you read off the nominees while I smoke this bowl real quick? Where's the 420 keeps at?
So the nominees are T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs, and Devontae Adams. Those are all some really good players.
Before you read
the winner is –
Hold on.
Oh, my bad.
T. Higgins – we already know he didn't win. We already know he didn't. But, man, I got to give a shout-out to T. Higgins. Like, such a good performance with, like, a 3rd-string or 4th-string quarterback and like that crazy toe tapping, like touchdown in the end zone. Like I won a championship because of T. Higgins.
That's a good feeling to win.
I got
like your third guy. That's a good feeling to like your third wide receiver or your second flex guy. You know, just as like the guy who wins you the game, you're like literally the last fucking guy, you know, probably the one who you were maybe thinking about putting somebody else in over him, you know, and whenever you make that call, it's got to be a good feeling. All right. But the championship clutch performer is Stephon Diggs, 56% of the votes, and he had 3 touchdowns and 145 yards. That's a lot. That's a lot, you know. You know, 145 yards and a touchdown might have gotten you a championship, you know, but he got 145 and 3 touchdowns. So that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. I'm actually going to join you on the smoke. I was wondering if we were waiting for like 320 or 420, but I'm just going to.
Nope, we're just going to keep smoking the entire time. And if you had the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs like stack, like it was probably – it had to be very hard to lose if you had those 2 players on your squad. And so amazing performances that we just talked about. I mean, some for the ages, that is for sure. And to come in championship week in that kind of style, just amazing.
Right. And especially like when if one of these guys was like your guy who you were in the off season, who you were just banging the drum for, it's got to be a good feeling. I was a big Josh Allen guy. Again, when you go from like being average to being good with John Brown and Cole Beasley, give him Stephon Diggs, just a badass. You know, you're gonna do good.
Yeah, here was my 2 big busts of the year preseason. I had Tom Brady 1 spot ahead of Josh Allen. And because of that, I drafted Tom Brady over Josh Allen in a handful of leagues. So that shit sucks. And then Diggs was one of those guys that I didn't know how he was going to be going over to Buffalo, and I kind of faded him a little bit. I did not have him on one team. So, yeah, that is a shame on me because, those guys just killed it all year long.
You know, it's like when you have those convictions, you know, if you're right, it feels damn good, you know, but if you miss – damn hole. And if you bought into them like a lot of your leagues, it could be a huge miss. You know, there's like so many that are just popping into my head of just like misses that I've had in 85% of my fantasy leagues that just, you know, screwed me over bad.
Doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't. It does not.
All right. So next category here, we got tight end clutch performer in a championship week. And we got 4 bosses on this list right now. We got Travis Kelce. We got Rob Gronkowski, who absolutely balled out. We have Jimmy Graham. And we have Darren Waller, who completely balled out. As shitty as the tight end wasteland was all year, it's crazy how in championship week there actually was like a handful of like really good performances. So that was one thing to see. And this was actually one of the closest races that we had. So we have, drum roll, Travis Kelce beating out Darren Waller, 38.6% to 37.1%. So we're talking about a 1.5 margin of victory for Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce had 13 targets, 7 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown. Anybody who had Travis Kelce, you had one bad week from him, and that was it. And he completely balled out pretty much every other week, and you rode him to the championship.
I had him in a non-PPR league, and there was like 3 weeks where he didn't score at least 10 points. 3 or 4 weeks where he didn't score 10 points, and that's like, fuck, that's so good. You know what I mean? That's just ridiculous in a non-PPR league is getting double digits 12, 13 weeks out of the year. That's just absolutely ridiculous.
And Darren Waller balled out. I'm going to pull up his I'm gonna pull up his Week 16 stats. He balled out. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 112 yards. So I mean, Kelsey like doubling up on those receptions and having that touchdown makes a difference. And David said Waller's on his way to being better than Kelsey and Kittle. I mean, they keep using him the way that they have. Darren Waller was someone who I wasn't sold on for the price tag, because last year he went in waves of being hit or miss. And I know up until the playoffs, there was a lot of people who didn't really like Darren Waller, even as the Darren Waller owner. But he balled out those 3 weeks when it mattered, though. That's for sure.
If you went against him in fantasy this year, you just were not comfortable until the game was over. You'd be like, damn, this fool could just like absolutely go off today with, and you just, when you go against somebody who has a tight end who like scores like 30 points, gets 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh, it's hard to win. It's hard to beat those guys because that just advantage right there. Because some of these people, you get a tight end who scores like 7 points in PPR versus like a Darren Waller and a Kittle who are going to get your 25 points. Their minimum is what, 15 points probably you expect? 8 catches, 70 yards is like the minimum for these top guys. It's so fucking ridiculous.
I went up against Darren Waller in Week 15, that game where he had like 200 yards or whatever it was, all fucking ridiculous. And in the league that I play in, it's 2 point per catch. And he had like fucking 50 points or like something ridiculous. And I still almost won, but I had Derek Carr as my super flex, and that's what lost me the game.
The game's flashing in my head right now.
Yeah, really shitty. And Antonio said, smoke it up. This was from earlier, so I'm about to double it up and smoke it up again.
I'll join you, actually.
There we go. And Donovan said, I won Monday night. Then Diggs was the nail in the coffin shut. I like it. That's cool. He didn't even care what Diggs did. Just icing on the cake. Damn it, Antonio faced, I'm assuming, Diggs and Allen in the championship. Yep, Diggs. There we go. David was smoking too. He said cheers. There we go. Gonna get some smoking in right now. Let's see. What's the next category we got? Okay, this one is Corey's gonna read off the nominees. This is a big one here. This is for quarterback of the year. Go ahead and read off the nominees, Corey.
All right, quarterback of the year, we got Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Deshaun Watson. And surprisingly, by 91% of votes, Josh Allen won, which honestly is pretty surprising. I thought Mahomes would have took it home, but Josh Allen won it.
For the price tag, Josh Allen is clearly the best one.
Oh,
Aaron Rodgers probably fell on some ADP, but Josh Allen you didn't have to pay very much draft capital to get him in a redraft,
Josh Allen was, I think, coming into the season based on Yahoo default, I think he was number 10. Aaron Rodgers maybe number 12. So they're both around the same range for sure. But I have no problem with Allen winning the award for sure. All 3 of those guys balled out. Watson's kind of the odd one out there, but all 3 of them balled out for the majority of the season.
And it's crazy. So what happened on Twitter was I posted the original poll, and I accidentally put Josh Allen in there twice. And he was winning the poll, but it was like 70%. But both Josh Allens also had votes. And so I reposted the poll. That one, I don't know, it lasted an hour until someone pointed it out. And then I reposted it, and I was shocked. It had more votes than any other poll that we did. I think it got up like 700, maybe 800 votes. And to come off with 91%, that's telling you how many people probably drafted Josh Allen late and won a championship because of him. And Jono said Rodgers should have won. Yeah, he was someone I thought had a chance for sure. And Joseph said Josh Allen is a better QB, fantasy QB over Rodgers, in my opinion. I mean, if you had either one of them, you were stoked. If you had anybody on this list, I think you were stoked by their performance. And Patrick Mahomes was the only one who you had to wait, who was the other one?
Deshaun.
Yeah, Deshaun. I mean, you had to reach to grab him, but
he was probably a top 3 4 guy that went in redraft, right?
Well,
Deshaun
I would say top 6, unanimous top 6, but I saw him go anywhere from 3 to 6. I saw people draft him as the number 6. But yeah, I mean, someone who you still had to pay a decent price for, not as much as Mahomes, but he lived up to the capital that you had to put into him. All right, so let's just keep rolling along with the running back of the year. And go ahead, Corey, read off those nominees.
All right, we got David Montgomery, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, and Dalvin Cook. Winner's Alvin Kamara again, second award of the night. And I think that's well-deserved too.
Definitely. I mean, good company, on here. I mean, pretty much any guy could have won it. I mean, maybe except David Montgomery. All of us just had the same one. So I threw David Montgomery on there because I think he overexceeded expectations. And it's crazy. Once you get past those top 3 out of Kamara, Henry, and Cook, I mean, it's a lot of people that you weren't really expecting to be around there, and everybody's just kind of close. But, yeah, Kamara's someone you spent the draft capital on and balled out, and if you made it to the championship, he more than likely won you a championship.
Who do you guys personally think was the best out of those 3?
Kamara, I think all of them are great running backs, but if you played in a PPR league, Kamara's receptions just put him over the top because Henry doesn't catch passes that much, and
Maybe 1 or 2 a game.
Yeah, I just think Kamara overall probably gave you more points as a pass catcher as well.
I mean, I like Henry this year. I mean, obviously Kamara, I mean, he tipped the scales with week 16. I mean, that made it, to where stats-wise, he beat out everybody. I mean, we just witnessed Henry have a 2,000-yard season. I mean, that's not something that we see a lot. I mean, second
in a
score.
passing league, like you said.
Yeah, even in a passing league. And it sucks because we see him get like random, pass attempts, to him. And I just don't know why they don't do it more. Like, why don't you just get him a couple easy catches? But he's just that much of a workhorse that they really don't need to. But Henry's someone that I was down on him this year. Idiot, and but next year, I don't know if anybody has ever had the workload that he got, the 300 plus carries, and actually came back-to-back seasons and been another top workhorse. Like, I think you have to go all the way back to LT 2005, 2006 to even find someone to like even repeat. Or no, wait. I guess Henry didn't win it this year. I think last year it was. So, no, never mind. I was going to say that no one's ever got back-to-back, like top scoring running back like 2 years in a row. But I guess Henry wasn't the top scoring running back last year anyways. So even
McCaffrey, right? Christian McCaffrey would have been the top.
Yep, and then Kamara got it this year. So Henry actually hasn't been the top scorer in fantasy. I mean, who knows? Maybe in a couple years, but that workload that he got makes me nervous. Like I want to see some stats about guys with 300 plus touch seasons and see what they did next year, because those workloads don't come around too often.
No, but if there's somebody who can do it, it's if there was one guy that I would put my money on to be able to do it, it would be him. Personally. But all right, that was a good one. Those top 3 guys, if you have those guys like in your fantasy team, you fucking are probably going to win a lot of games. Well, because that one guy is so good.
Yep. And it's crazy. Kamara had those couple down weeks with like Taysom Hill to where people benched him. And I mean, luckily that only lasted like, 1 or 2 weeks, I think, where people were like, debating that. And Antonio, Kamara went 1 pick before his. That is tough. Joseph said Kamara would have been even better stats at Breeze, wouldn't have missed time. Yep. Benjamin, 2 QB league, 0.7 PPR opponent had Kamara, 55 points. I had Stafford as my QB2, 0.68 points. Monday night, I'm down by 15, and it's my Diggs and Bass versus his Beasley, and needless to say, I won. That's pretty dope. That is pretty dope. Because I won a championship pretty easily because my opponent played Stafford. It was a league where we could play 3 QBs, though. Jono said, "Yep, look at DeMarco Murray and CMC." Okay, that's talking about the 300 plus
Right.
touch seasons, and CMC got hurt this year. DeMarco Murray got hurt after his big 300 touch season. And Benjamin, my winning squad: Rodgers, Hopkins, Hill, Diggs, DJ, Gaskin, Fant, AB, Gibson, Stafford, Bass, and the Browns. That's pretty dope. And I'm assuming DJ is David Johnson, because it looks like those are the two running backs. David Johnson got got hurt for a while. He was actually in my championship lineup also, and wish he could have played like that the whole time. And Conscious Machine, nice, representing the East Coast. And 420, long time no smoke. There we go. And oh shit, we're doing some drafts right now, and Antonio said he's on the clock. I'll be right back. Let's get into our next category. And we got 420 coming up in California in 9 minutes. So, yeah, we're going to get those bowls packed and ready to go. Throw 420 in the chat so we know that you got them packed and ready to go for 420 California time. And our next award is going to be the wide receiver of the year. And Corey, why don't you go ahead and kick those nominees?
All right, we got Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, D-Hop, and Stephon Diggs. And the winner went to Devontae Adams.
Well deserved.
Honestly, all four of those guys could have are great nominees. I mean, D-Hop kind of tailed off at the end there, but all four of them were great wide receivers. If you had any of them, you had a great season for sure.
That's what I was thinking right now. I was like, depending on the week, I'll take any of those. I'll take any of those polls, depending on what week it is. Really just depends on the opponent when you're talking about the elite wide receivers.
Yep, and Adams is definitely, one of the elite, coming down with 18 touchdowns. I mean, that is a huge freaking touchdown total on the season. Like, you love that. Not much more to say.
Too, right?
Great. All right. Now, next award here. We got the tight end of the year. All right, and let's get into these nominees. So, our first nominee is Travis Kelce. Our second nominee is Travis Kelce. Our third nominee is Travis Kelce. Our fourth nominee is Travis Kelce. Okay, and by wide margin of victory, he actually took it home at a 67% of the vote here. None other than Travis Kelce.
Which Travis Kelce won? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
It was the number one, Travis Kelce. So I think people were lazy and they just saw his name first, probably didn't look at the rest, and then just clicked it.
And then his stats, I actually have his yards and his touchdowns. He's got 11 touchdowns for 1,416 yards.
Woo!
Kelce, he would have finished, I think it was like the number 5. He would have been like number 4 or number 5 wide receiver in PPR fantasy if he was a like open position or whatever like that, So that's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're talking about him having more points than, or not more points, but more yards than every single wide receiver except for Stephon Diggs.
That's legit.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah. And he's got literally Tyreek Hill on his team that he's like competing for, attention. So it's just ridiculous.
And Antonio said, wonder who won. Yep. And then David said Kelce is better than most wide receiver ones in the league. That's for damn.
And he's 31 years old.
He's got a lot. And Patrick Mahomes is his quarterback for the rest of his career.
Right.
Now you know for sure. Like, what a feeling.
And they're like best friends. You always see them like posting pictures and shit like that. I actually went to the high school with the girl, Travis Kelce's wife. She's a year younger than me.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, fucking.
Nice.
She was awesome. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Can he have his, like, reality show to like find his wife or something?
I'm not exactly sure. She was really beautiful and smart. Like she was like homecoming queen and the year after me and like went to Pepperdine and shit. So she's, fucking beautiful, smart. She was like leader ASB and shit, class president. She's fucking one of those people, you know what I mean? Just fucking good at everything and shit. Yeah.
There you go, Jono. He said that Travis Kelce finished as the running back 4 and the wide receiver 3 overall. Like, that's pretty
ridiculous.
I know that I had Travis Kelce on, I want to say like 3 leagues, maybe it was something like that. And it was amazing to not ever have to worry about the tight end position. Like, it's usually something like week to week you really stress about. But I will say, for anybody who's playing in a 12-team league or lower, Travis Kelce is a first-round draft pick. Like, he is a first-round draft pick, like, no matter what. And you better jump for him because somebody else is going to do it.
And he's also a first rounder in the big leagues because when you're like pick 13 or 14 or 12 in a 14-man league, you need to kind of get an edge somewhere, because those top guys, they're for sure just going to have an edge over you, the Derrick Henrys and stuff like that, especially if you're not doing like a non-PPR and stuff like that. So you really do have to get something that's going to give you an edge, even if you're in a 14 league, Patrick Mahomes is going to give you an edge. So something that's going to give you an edge is going to take you over the top. Number 1 tight end is the way to go in like those big end leagues.
Money in the bank. And David said, if you had a top 3 pick, would you draft Kelce over CMC, Kamara, or Henry, etc.? I mean, that's probably the cutoff to where I would be drafting like guys like that first. But Kelce, like where Michael Thomas was getting drafted this year, that's where I would be drafting Kelce. Like between
5 through 7.
Yeah, 5 through 7. There you go. Like middle of the first round. He has to be respected that way. Patrick Mahomes is only going to get better. Their bond is only going to grow. And Kelce, he's the best in the league. He's talented for sure, but he knows how to outwork people. Like, he's one of the smartest players at his position maybe ever.
He's legit.
So the reason we did that is because we wanted to be able to at least highlight some other tight ends, who deserve to at least have a shot at an award. So we do have an award here for tight ends not named Travis Kelce. So the unanimous number 2 tight end, that's what we're talking about here. But we wanted to be able to highlight some guys. So, Brian, why don't you go ahead and read the nominees for this award?
This year's nominees for tight end of the year not named Travis Kelce: Robert Tonyan, TJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller, and Logan Thomas. And the winner is Darren Waller with 77%. He had 1,196 yards and 9 touchdowns this year. That's really good for a tight end.
That's not bad. I mean, when you look, it just sucks that like Kelce just makes everyone look like shit,
With 300 more yards and 2 more touchdowns.
If you take Kelce out, like we're talking about Waller, great season, but it's just Kelce is just so far above everybody else that it just makes it. But Waller, phenomenal season for sure.
He had more yards. 12 wide receivers had more yards than him. That's it. So just to put it into perspective, how he did, I mean, not points-wise, but just yardage-wise, there's only 12 wide receivers that had more than he. So,
not very many people are like one of the main focal points of the offense. Not very many tight ends are, Josh Jacobs, you would say that he is probably the focal point of the offense, but, he had some, average games. He didn't go off like super hard this year. Waller, I would say, was like the star of that team this year for sure.
I mean, no receivers really stood out on the Vegas Raiders either. Like Nelson Aguilar had his ups and downs for sure. I mean, Hunter Renfrow maybe had 2 games where we thought, oh, he's the waiver wire ad, but then he just went back to irrelevant status. So
It happens to be 420.
So we are gonna light it up. And
Sorry for interrupting.
no worries. Let's get it going. And there we go. David with the 420 blessing. Here we go. Corey, you can answer this one. David said Kelsey over Mahomes.
I personally would do it just because I'm never one to draft a quarterback in the first round. Never in my 8 years of fantasy football have I ever drafted a quarterback first round. So I understand Mahomes is like not like any other quarterback, but Kelsey over Hill, I'd consider it. I think I'd do it. I think because with Kelsey, Alex talked about this every single week where he says, oh, you want Kelsey because he just gives you such a big advantage at the tight end spot that it's just unmatched. Where if you're passing up on Hill and you get Kelsey, and then say round 2 you're getting, I don't know who's like a round 2 wide receiver. I mean, this year round 2 wide receiver was probably like Kenny Galladay. I'm not saying Kenny Galladay is anywhere close to Tyreek Hill, but Kenny Galladay is not as big a drop-off from Tyreek Hill as Kelsey would have been from who was the number 2 tight end drafted this year? Like
Kittle.
Yeah.
Kittle.
Well, we get Kittle. Kittle was good this year. But I'd say the tight end.
When he played, he was amazing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. Like Kittle was great. So it's like the tight end gap from Kelsey to the next best is larger than the wide receiver gap from Hill to Kenny Galladay type deal.
And I would say Kelsey and Kittle, they're both going to be in that same range to where they both need to be respected, that way, because the drop off from those two guys to the next guy is tremendous. I mean, the next guys drafted were
probably Mark Andrews and Darren Waller were probably the next 2 drafted in most leagues.
And Ertz was number 5, and I think Higbee was like average, the sixth average tight end drafted. So yeah, we're talking about huge drop offs after those top 2 guys.
Hill is amazing. If you get a league where there's bonus points involved for long touchdowns, for those 50-yard bombs, you get an extra point or 2. Hill is the best wide receiver around because he can just break off, a 90-yard catch, a 75-yard catch and run just real quick,
Yep, and you want those guys on the high-powered offenses either way. David said, I agree. Kelsey is a higher pick because of the strategy and stats combined with Waller, Kittle, and others in the picture next. I was just wondering how that affects the combo. Yeah, I mean, Kelsey.
A lot of it depends on draft position. Like you're obviously, if you're in the top 4 or 5 picks, I'm probably not going to choose the tight end. I'm probably going to go with one of the top running backs. I always like to hit the running backs first. And then once you do that, I would always try to go for the number 1 wide receiver before the number 1 tight end, no matter the circumstance, even if it gives you the advantage. That's what I think. I don't know. I just think tight ends are great, and they're just in the second. I don't know. I like the wide receiver. I think those other 2 tight ends are great. They're legit. They're definitely in like the next tier, right below Kels.
Yep. All right, and we got a couple categories in a row where we got to put some guys on blast for being the busts of the year. So we're going to talk a little bit of shit right now. Smoke some weed and talk some shit. And here we go. Let's kick off these QB busts of the year. And Brian, why don't you go ahead and kick the nominees?
Excellent. For the QB bust of the year, we have Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Cam Newton, and Carson Wentz. To me, it's clear even before we even get into the winner. But the winner is Carson Wentz with 44% of the vote. 2 of these other guys were, one of Dak's hurt. The first 5 games, he looked like the best, one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the league. Cam Newton had no weapons. I would say Carson Wentz had no weapons. But Lamar Jackson, if you were able to get to the Super Bowl or get to the championship, he might have won you the championship because he had a dope run at the end. Those last 5 weeks, he had a great run. So it's clearly, for me, it's Carson Wentz. He got benched for a rookie. You know, that's not a good sign. He was a turnover machine. Turnover machine. That's just never a good sign.
Yeah, he wasn't horrible for fantasy for the longest time. But if you were riding him in like a super flex league or something and you had nobody else, besides him, like, yeah, that could have tanked your team at the end. Like, I was in a league where we played 2 quarterbacks and a super flex, and I was riding Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Carson Wentz the entire way. So I was super nervous in the championship, but I ended up playing T. Higgins in my super flex spot in the championship, and he got as much as quarterbacks do. He got like 23 points or something like that, so it was pretty awesome. But yeah, I feel for people who had Carson Wentz as like a super flex, and he tanked you right at the end too. Like, that's what makes it worse. All right, so let's get into the next one here. We got the running back busts of the year, and Brian, why don't you go ahead and read these nominees?
All right. We have Christian McCaffrey. We have Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. All right.
Before you read,
go ahead.
And before you read the winner, I mean, maybe some guys got put on here because of injury. I mean, in fantasy, it does suck, when a guy gets injured and he's the first pick or something. I mean, we're talking about fantasy awards. So is he a bust in real life? Not really. But some of these guys, even though they got injured, they were kind of busts for your fantasy team.
For me, the 2 big ones are Ezekiel Elliott and Clyde Edwards because they play, And if you were banking on them to get you a lot of points, you were not in a good spot. But the winner with 44% of the vote is Ezekiel Elliott. And that's probably because he was a top 5 pick. He was probably the number 3 back that went in most drafts.
He got drafted.
McCaffrey.
I saw him getting drafted before Saquon Barkley in a lot of drafts. And I saw a lot of people taking victory laps because of that when Saquon got hurt. They're like, oh, yeah, I knew I drafted Zeke before Saquon. And then I think that I got to agree that Zeke was the bigger bust because you played him all year expecting him to be good, and he failed you so many weeks.
The question
my 2 big ones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying the question becomes, was he a bust because Dak Prescott got hurt, or is it just he just had a down year? That's a question I
think
have.
it's Dak for sure. The reason is Dak because he looked good the first 4 or 5 weeks. He had probably like 4 to 5 touchdowns in the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season.
Their offensive line, that made a huge difference. I mean, at the end of the season, they started gelling a little bit together after they got a couple weeks like under their belt. But I mean, all those offensive line changes, like that for sure makes a difference. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people take the offensive linemen, for granted in fantasy because, we don't really care about those guys. We just expect them to do good every single game. But Zeke has literally had one of the historically better like offensive lines like ever in history. And once he lost a couple pieces, we saw that it makes a difference if you don't got those studs.
And especially if you got that Fumblerooski problem, you know what I mean? I think Mixon probably should have been on there before Saquon and the other ones, before Saquon and Christian McCaffrey personally. I'm not a big Mixon guy, so I pass on him every chance I get. Again, like we're not really talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He got moved up into the first round of drafts because he was going to be the number 1 running back for the Chiefs, and he just didn't really have any weeks that were phenomenal, right? He maybe 1 week that was pretty good, but other than that, he was just like average, right?
Literally 1 week. That was
right.
one game with like 3 touchdowns or something like that. Literally one blow-up game. And I think the thing that made it worse was they just didn't put him on IR from the beginning. And I mean, that shit sucked. If they just would have put him on IR, that would have, at least people could have pivoted, got rid of him, or whatever. But it made it worse that they that whole 3-week span, it was just like up in the air. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Is Gio going to be the guy? Like that just made it even worse to where he should definitely be considered for this award.
I definitely think so. And I still see people just beating the drum for Mixon. What's your opinion on that, you two, about Joe Mixon just in general?
Mixon, I'm always one where like I know people have these don't draft lists, but I'm always one where just like I pick the best available guy, you know. Like if Joe Mixon was on there with like, I'm not saying Joe Mixon's anywhere close to Zeke, but let's say Joe Mixon's probably going around the same range as Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you'd say probably this draft, or am I wrong?
Yeah.
I probably would have gone with Joe Mixon just because he's the proven guy. I don't really like to take rookies. I took Antonio Gibson, but that was like round like 12. We'll get into him later. But I just think that Joe Mixon. Wait, what was the question? I got confused, man. I'm sorry.
What do you think about Joe Mixon?
Oh,
What do you just think about Joe Mixon?
Oh, I think he's a
player.
I just don't think people need to stop drafting him as an RB2. People are treating him like an RB2 every single year, but he's more just an RB3 flex play. I just don't think he's developed this persona that he is a bust every single year. So, and it didn't help that Joe Burrow went down too, because that happened too. And then even before Joe Burrow got hurt, he was injured too. So I'm not.
He had the one good game, and it was versus Jacksonville. It was terrible.
The Bengals are dog shit, though. Like, that's another thing. Like, I mean, I know that there's all this hype, like, oh, they got 2 new linemen. You know, it's going to make, like, such a huge difference. But I don't know. I think a lot of their blocking schemes or something. Like, I don't know. They're not blocking anybody. He's not getting anywhere. Like, I mean, it's one of those things to where he's getting hit in the backfield, you know, more often than he's getting to the second level or anything. So that their line is just shitty, and we can't have a lot of confidence in anyone if their offensive line is shit. Like that's just needs to be. We need to. If your offensive line is shit, you should just your expectations should be lowered just a little bit from wherever everyone else's are.
I would agree with that. And I see over here David Hess is talking about CEA. He did go. Clyde Edwards-Helaire went super high in drafts. He was just like talked about like he was just a first shoe in like 10 touchdown, 1,000-yard season. And he whiffed. But yeah, he went high.
I think the later that you drafted, like the hype kept building, like more and more. So the closer you drafted to the start of the season, I think the higher that he went.
I just think it's because Damian Williams opted out, so he was going to be the workhorse. He was a first-round back, you know. Obviously, if you're a first-round back, they're going to give you the reps, you know. So even, I mean, I know Alex talked about how Le'Veon Bell he wasn't even in the scenario when he was drafted that high, but being a workhorse, he should have gotten in a phenomenal offense where you have guys like Hill and Kelsey, like, and Mahomes, like, they're going to force the ball out of Mahomes' hands, force him to run the ball more, and he couldn't get anything going. And even when Bell got there, and even Bell was getting like 3 carries a game, he was still not doing anything, even with Bell there and when not there. So CH was even bigger bust, in my opinion, than Joe Mixon, because the hype was bigger for CH, because Gio Bernard is more relevant than any other Chiefs back. Like Darrell Williams is nothing, you know. I don't know who's the other guy, Thompson in there too. So that's my
Thompson, yeah.
And I think one thing that we need to remember moving forward is if a team doesn't draft like a running back in like, I would say like the top 14, 15 picks, something like that, they're probably not going to be building their offense like around that person. Like, I mean, we talk about someone like Zeke, who is drafted, you know, number 4 overall, you know, they're building around him. Even Leonard Fournette, as much as like he wasn't that guy and he kept getting hurt, he was a number 4 pick, I believe. And they made him the workhorse, you know, for a long time. So I think that's something that we got to remember. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the last pick in the draft, in the first round of the draft. So, you know, if they wanted him that bad, they would have moved up or something to get him, not just expect him to fall.
I will say, though, Gibson, their offense was surrounded by him for sure, but that's also due to quarterback play. But Gibson was drafted round 3 or 4 this year?
Probably, yeah. Right around 4 in mine, a lot of mine.
I got him later than that.
Oh no! I'm talking about in like the NFL draft.
The draft? Mm-hmm.
Oh, NFL draft. Yeah, I think he was. I'm gonna check because I do
third round pick. I think he was like a 3rd round pick.
The third
Out
or
of
fourth.
Florida Atlantic or something like that. I could be wrong though.
And
Get some-
I just mean, yeah, and I just mean like let me see. I
Oh,
can't.
you were talking about fantasy.
Fantasy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of like, oh, they didn't draft him high,
Well,
so they're not gonna build the offense around. Like the NFL team's not going to build their offense around him, so that affects his fantasy outlook. Okay.
Yeah, because he was being drafted in fantasy as if he was going to be a workhorse, back right off the bat. Like, I mean, 1st round pick, high 2nd round pick, maybe earlier in August. But yeah, I saw him getting drafted 6th and 7th is the highest. I saw him get drafted in a few leagues. So people drafted him expecting, to be a workhorse.
I mean, because Damian Williams showed out. So, and obviously, I think CH is a better talent than Damian Williams because, I mean, Damian Williams was a backup in Miami. So if Andy Reid and those guys could turn Damian Williams into a star running back, they could easily make CEH a star running back. So that's what I think went into it too.
And Antonio said he was between CEH and Cook and went Cook. Don't like drafting rookies. I'm assuming Cook, not Cooks.
I would never. You'd never draft a rookie over someone like Dalvin Cook.
People did though. But people drafted CEH over Derrick Henry. I witnessed it happen.
They're probably watching, too much ESPN and NFL Network, which I actually believe those guys like try to sway the opinion a lot of the time, personally.
Yeah. There we go. David said CEH went 6th in my draft.
Right. He went around 6th or 7th in my draft.
Yeah. I saw him.
He went in my draft now.
I saw him
And
go.
that would probably be like, right after, because in my opinion, like most of the top 5 would be like, CMC, Saquon, Ezekiel Elliott, Cook, Kamara, Derrick Henry. He probably went right after Michael Thomas. So anywhere from like 6 to 8 for sure.
Yeah.
3rd in one of this guys. That's crazy.
Yeah, nuts. What up, DJ Cut?
CEH went 12th in my draft, and Dalvin Cook went 13th, so right in front of him.
There you go.
That's wild. And
Crazy.
Dalvin, well, all leagues are different, but Dalvin Cook to 13, it's got to be a super flex or something like that.
After Damian Williams opted out, the hype went through the freaking roof. Like it just, it was crazy. It was crazy. All right, so get into the next category here. We got wide receiver bust of the year. And Corey, why don't you go ahead and read off the nominees?
All right, let me pull up this here. Wide receiver bust of the year, we got Kenny Golladay, Michael Thomas, AJ Green, and Marquise No Longer Hollywood Brown. And the winner is Michael Thomas.
Well deserved. Well deserved. Got hurt in the first game, missed a couple games, and then just came back and was so blah. I don't even know what else to say other than just blah.
For some reason, they said he was not very happy. He's just like not happy there. Again, for me in this one, it's Marquise Brown. He was somebody who I was super high on, and I just like sucked. Again, like he was hurt. Michael Thomas was hurt, kind of like Kenny Golladay, where like, fuck, you had him on your team, even though like every week it was like, I think Michael Thomas is a big disappointment. He was hurt,
Not for that much.
Marquise Brown came on at the end. What was that?
He wasn't hurt for that long. Like, I mean, I don't think it's because of that the time that he was hurt that people think that he's a bust.
I would agree, but it's like Kenny Golladay, like he got hurt with that hamstring and was like kind of like almost gonna play every week, Like, but when he played, he was good. When Kenny Golladay played those like 3 or 4 games, he was still pretty legit. So I see what what's going through.
And I do agree with you though about Marquise Brown. I had to tell people that I literally will not answer your question if you call him Hollywood Brown. Like, you can't suck this bad in the NFL and have a cool nickname. Like, no, it doesn't happen. In one of my leagues, 12-man league, I dropped him. He got picked up right away. The person played him. He got 0, and then he got dropped the next day. Like, he was just so bad for the longest time, getting like 2 targets a game, like 1 catch a game for 10 yards. Like, everybody remembers his first 2 games in the NFL, and I think that we've come a long way from that, and we got to forget about those 2 games. Those never existed for Marquise Brown.
He did score in like 6 out of the last 8 or 5 out of the last 7 or something like that. So, he did come on decently well at the end when the team was playing better,
Most of those games, he only had 1 catch.
Yeah, it was like 3 catches for like 37 yards, but a touchdown, but
yeah,
touchdowns are important.
No, some of them were literally 1 catch games, because I remember seeing one of those games. It was a touchdown in like the first minute, and someone was all hyped, like, "Oh yeah, Marquise Brown." I'm like, I bet you that's his only catch all game, and it was like 1 catch for 10 yards and a touchdown. And that was his only catch of the game. Oh man,
the whole Ravens offense was just a train wreck. I mean, Mark Andrews wasn't living up to his hype, and there was really no true number 2 receiver behind Marquise Brown. I mean, Willie Snead had his games, but he wasn't consistent enough. And, so it's like it was. And then you had the whole running back, running back problems with you had Ingram, Dobbins, and Gus Edwards all mixing in there. And Lamar Jackson wasn't living up to number 2 quarterback potential. So that whole Ravens offense was just not one to own, at least, like Brian said, like the first 10 weeks of the season.
They sucked. They were horrible.
They were just not that great, But if you had if you had Lamar on your team and you were staying afloat with your other draft picks and you had Lamar on your team at the end, you probably took that next step, and he might have won you some leagues at the end because he had a couple of huge games at the end, with 2 rushing touchdowns and 90 yards, which for a quarterback getting something like that is just money.
Yep, and he was hurt at the beginning of the season too. That made a difference. And DG Cuddy said Lamar was a big disappointment. Went 2 in my league. That's I saw him go number 2 in a league, but it was a league where you could start 3 QBs, and that was the only time I saw him go that high.
Yeah, I took him in a 2 quarterback league. I took him 6th as the second quarterback there. Or 5th or 6th as the second quarterback there. Patrick Mahomes went 1 ahead. So he went high in your draft. He went really high in the draft.
That's for sure. That's for sure. All right. So our next category here, we got tight end bust of the year. And I'm going to read off these nominees. We got Zach Ertz. We got George Kittle. We got Rob Gronkowski, and we got Tyler Higbee. So, Kittle, I mean, he wasn't a bust when he played, and the votes are accordingly to that. And Rob Gronkowski, I don't know. I don't know if he should have been on this list, because I guess maybe some people had him overhyped, but the votes are in, and DG Cuddy is right. He said Ertz for sure, and Ertz won the vote by 53%. And he was a unanimous top 5 tight end drafted. I know I drafted him in a couple leagues, right after, after the top 4, Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, and Andrews. And Ertz was just that next guy, and thought he might have a chip on his shoulder. Because he's in his contract year, and even when he played, he wasn't that good. He had 1 good game, 1 decent game.
I didn't even think he was the best tight end on his own team. You know what I mean? So that's what I was thinking when I saw this, and I was like, I didn't think he was going to have the greatest year. I went personally with Higbee because he was one of those off-season darlings that if you were on the Twitterverse, people were just saying how he was just going to explode this year. He was going to be a league winner and stuff like that. And I was just oh, okay. I don't see it, And again, I didn't even think he was necessarily the best tight end on his own team, because I think Gerald Everett is pretty good, But again, he was an off-season person who probably got drafted as a top 10 tight end. And he didn't perform like that. He had a couple good games, but he just seemed below average to me.
Yeah, Zach Ertz, big disappointment. I mean, I wouldn't have taken Zach Ertz in the draft just because I think Dallas Goedert is better than him too. But even if Dallas Goedert isn't better than him, it's still there's that threat. Like if anything, they're going to split receptions. I mean, you could always go 2 tight end sets, but it's just another big tight end threat on the team that I just didn't want to risk it. And Zach Ertz didn't help that Carson Wentz was having a down year too, because I don't know if I saw something like Zach Ertz was like Carson Wentz's best man in his wedding. So like that's why they had such a good connection. And when Carson Wentz goes down, that just automatically makes Zach Ertz go down. So poor quarterback play, great tight end on his roster as well. Just didn't bode well for Ertz. A good season at all.
Yep. And even with Goddard being there, I felt like their kind of offense, the way that they had really no weapons on the outside, that they could still support 2 tight ends. I mean, both of them kind of got hurt at different times. I'm sure that didn't help Carson Wentz either. But I don't know. Like coming in, it didn't seem like Ertz was that bad of a pick, depending on where you could get him. And yeah, ended up being a huge bust. Huge bust. All right. Let's get into the next category here. We got a couple waiver wire awards here back to back. The first one is the QB waiver wire ad of the year. So I'm going to ask it now. Because there's a little bit of a delay for everybody, throw it in the chat. Who is your QB waiver wire ad of the year? And the nominees are Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Taysom Hill, and Baker Mayfield. And there's no surprise here. It is Justin Herbert, 90% of the votes. So I think this was the largest margin of victory. Antonio already knows what's up, and Herbert, DG Cuddy, Herbert, DG Cuddy, the herbs. And there we go. DG Cuddy. He was my starting QB since week 4. And smoke a bowl of Herbert. I know I might have to do a dab because my wife, oh no, she left the bong here. I just didn't even see it. She left it by my feet. There we go. So we are going to smoke a bowl of Herbert, who was, it was coined by my man Brian here. He was the first one that said,
Thank you.
Herbert. So I always got to give him the props every time we shout that out.
I appreciate that. That felt good to get a trademark funny name. Packing bowls of Herbert over here. That shit was funny. I'll go with you.
There we go. Let's smoke a bowl of Herbert. And Hurts was good, Jono. Hurts was definitely good. I was someone who – so I play in a league where there's literally no waivers. You can pick up anybody like whenever you want. And oh man, and we got to smoke a big one for my man Antonio throwing the $10 super sticker in there. I can't see what the sticker is because I don't have YouTube open right now. And Antonio said, "Let's fly high," and that's how we roll. So let's do it. And but so I play in a league where we don't have waivers at all. I can pick up anybody like in the middle of the game if I want to. The game pretty much like started, like right as the game started, they announced that Justin Herbert is going into the game. Like literally was not announced anywhere like before the game. Like literally was the minute that the game started. I went and picked him up like that fucking second. Like when he became the starter, I couldn't play him because the game's literally already started. But in that very first game, I was so hyped on that video that I put out for Waiver Wire Week 3 when I had no followers on YouTube. I just hope I know some people saw that on Facebook, but shout out to Herbert because him balling out definitely made me stand out a little bit more because I was so high on him, like literally from that week that I was ahead of the game.
He just had a phenomenal season. What did he throw? 30 touchdowns, something like that, or something ridiculous?
30 or 30s rookie record, though. That's all.
Because I think the rookie record was 27 before.
Baker Mayfield. It was Manning, and then Baker Mayfield broke it by 1. So I think he might have had 28, and then Herbert just broke it, and 30 TDs in his first season.
And I see Antonio right there. It's totally true. Once Herbert came in, the offense just took off, and the ability of the offense just took off. And you just knew in that first game that he was never going to get his job back after he got the punctured lung.
That sucks, dude, because he lost his job and it wasn't even his fault, you know? Like that trainer or whatever punctured his lung. Like cost him his starting job.
Right. Career, because he's never going to get a starting job again,
Yeah.
I totally think if you see that somebody just posted, should Herbert have been drafted before Tua in the draft? I think yes. I think the Dolphins would probably be dope right now if they had Justin Herbert.
If they had Herbert, they'd be in the playoffs right now.
Right, because he is like a young Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's got like the canon of Ryan Fitzpatrick, but he's better, obviously,
He doesn't throw the picks.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Tua, he was just super hyped though, coming out of Alabama. I mean, what he was he could have went top 2, top 3, right? Like, I mean, they kept thinking that he was going to go like right after Burrow. I mean, the hype was real. Like that, the hype was real. DG Cuddy said Tyrod every year gets screwed. I know, got screwed the year before with Baker, or maybe that was 2 years before. At this point, I can't even remember.
And is it that he gets screwed, or is that he's like, he can only take you so far, Like again, Tyrod's probably never going to lose you the game, but he's never going to win you the game, And I used to I was a big Tyrod guy for a long time, but I just don't know if he's just never going to be able to get you over the hump. I'm selling on Tua, by the way. I'm not a big Tua guy. The guy can't throw, in my opinion. I don't know.
To be fair with Tyrod, he did get hurt in like game 2 of that year. So he didn't even really have a chance. Like same thing here, like game 2. I mean, it is what it is. Like some people have good luck with that kind of stuff and some people don't. He had injuries at the wrong time. And DG Cuddy said the Finns are still a good team. They don't need Tua to throw it for 300 yards. Like that's how good they are. Like they just lost a couple crucial games that cost them in a really heavy AFC. All right, let's get into our next category here. So now we have we have the award for the skill position waiver wire ad of the year. And to be nominated on this list, you had to be drafted in less than 40% of leagues. So guys who were really not drafted, at all. Number 1 on the list, we got James Robinson. Number 2, we got Chase Claypool. Justin Jefferson, he is on the list as well. And then Mike Davis. I mean, outside of Chase Claypool, I mean, everybody was pretty consistent from when you picked them up. Let's see. Antonio says Robinson. DG Cuddy says 100% Robinson. And you guys already know, with 70% on the vote here, James Robinson, someone who was not drafted in a lot of leagues. If you drafted early in August and you somehow swooped him up, in August as a waiver wire ad, you're just loving it. It made your season that much better.
And I draft right in the beginning or right at the end of off season, so like right before the season starts. And like he probably went in like the last like couple rounds. I don't even know if he went because people were drafting Devin Ozigbo or whatever, before him. And they have the receiving back there too, right? He was in Washington for all those years.
I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but yeah, there was multiple guys.
You know what I'm talking about, right? They were like even saying like he was going to be the guy in Jacksonville because he could catch passes. And there was Dare, yeah, and then Chris something maybe, I don't know. But he came down from Washington with their offensive coordinator Jay Gruden and stuff like that. So Clay Thompson, I don't know, something like that.
Chris Thompson. There you go.
Thompson.
That's who.
Right. Chris Thompson was on the squad. They were saying that he might be like, after Lenny Fournette got cut. So James Robinson was just a badass.
And especially if you drafted early, Leonard Fournette was getting drafted, in your fantasy draft in what, 4th, 5th round, something like that. And then things change.
Right. Oh man, yeah. You would have been happy with Mike Davis. He dominated a lot of weeks, and then Justin Jefferson. You were obviously going to be happy with him. But to me, it's clearly James Robinson. He's clearly the waiver wire guy of the year.
100. All right, next category we got here: comeback player of the year. And you didn't have, this is for fantasy, so it didn't necessarily have to be because of an injury. And Brian, why don't you go ahead and read the nominees?
The nominees are Aaron Rodgers, Brandon Cooks, Alex Smith, and Corey Davis. All right. And then, we see where obviously, even though you said it doesn't have to be fantasy related, we could see that the winner is Alex Smith with 67%. And that's because of the leg injury. You're going to give it to him every time. Who would you guys think is like the biggest comeback player of the year fantasy wise out of the other three?
Go ahead, Corey.
Man, my nominee was Brandon Cooks. I know he was it last year? Was he with the Rams last year or no? Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So the Rams last year, and they had Kupp and Woods, so he kind of became that third guy. He wasn't getting a lot of run. I mean, and then as soon as Bill O'Brien gets fired, he turns it on in Houston. I mean, those first 3 or 4 games, he was doing little to nothing because I drafted Cooks. I was a Cooks owner, and I was about to drop him. And luckily he broke out of his slump, just needed a little Bill O'Brien firing to do him good, and he was ready to go, I mean, I'm not sure how much drafted he was in a lot of other leagues, but he was going to be a number 2 receiver behind Will Fuller. But I definitely think that he bounced back in a big way for sure.
And he ended just on fire the second half of the season. Like you said, it was just ridiculous. I don't even know. He probably got like 1 or 2 touchdowns in the first 8-9 weeks, and then he probably scored like 5 or 6 in the last 5 or 6 games. So there was a couple games that he just went off. Brandon Cooks. I can't remember exactly which games, but scoring like 60-yard bombs on the first play of the game and stuff like that. I personally went with Corey Davis. He's just kind of been like a playoff, a bust, kind of first-round bust. Didn't do great. And then this year, he was just a great wide receiver who you pretty much started. If you had him on your team, he was pretty much starting all the time as like a decent middle to high-end wide receiver too.
Yep, good story with him, and that just shows like how bad Mariota was when he was there. Because, Corey Davis, he was like Devontae Parker was last year. I mean, Devontae Parker was like left for dead. Nobody wanted him at all. And, that was Corey Davis this year for sure. I went with Aaron Rodgers because last year Aaron Rodgers was extremely hyped, from the year before when he balled out. And the reason why he was drafted so low this year is because everybody was out on him. You draft a backup QB, you draft a backup running back, like you get him no weapons or anything like that. And what does he do? He gets that chip on his shoulder again, and he just goes and has an MVP caliber season. So that's why I nominated Aaron Rodgers for the award.
No, Aaron Rodgers was getting drafted. I think he was ranked 11 or 12 in quarterbacks in the pre-draft rankings. Like guys like Ben Roethlisberger and Drew Brees were getting drafted before him, and those guys are older than him. Like if anybody's like need to be closer to retirement or is worn out, it's those two guys. And those guys were getting drafted before him just because all the things you said. So that's a good bounce back candidate, A-Rod.
It just goes to show that like how much like the media and stuff like that will sway the opinion in the fantasy world. Like, the draft happens. People are like, well, they're not going to do as good. They're like planning for the future. They're not planning for now. And he just like comes and just freaking destroys. And then that was like a huge offseason one. That's like the big thing about some of these guys who you choose and who you like. It's like, man, don't believe the hype all the time, because offseason darlings like Marquise Brown, Tyler Higbee, they'll hurt you. And something like that. We like underestimating Aaron Rodgers, putting him 12th. Like 10th, even 10 to 12, that's ridiculous, And I know he didn't play great last year, like fantasy wise, but the disrespect is ridiculous.
Yeah, how many people drafted Matt Ryan over Aaron Rodgers? You know, like that was like something that for sure happened in a really large
A lot of
amount.
leagues, for sure.
All right, so next award here, we got the Rookie of the Year award. This is an amazing list. We got Justin Herbert, we got James Robinson, we got Antonio Gibson, we got Justin Jefferson. Who does everybody think? Throw it in the chat. Let's throw it in the chat. Who does everybody think? I mean, these are, if you had any one of these guys on your squad, you know, you loved it. And there, I mean, Gibson was the only one who was like unanimously like drafted in a bunch of leagues out of all four of these guys.
Correct.
And the winner is, with a 43% share of the vote, Justin Herbert. It's got to be. It's got to be. That is the way that everybody is voting. DG Cuddy said it. Antonio said it. And it's unanimous. I mean, he had pretty much the best year that a rookie quarterback has ever had in the NFL.
You know, and then in this category, we still have Justin Jefferson, who has the most yards ever by a rookie wide receiver. So two of like the greatest rookie seasons ever from skill player positions was 2020. That's going to go down as a good draft class probably in the end. Just, you know, on those two guys alone, that's pretty good.
And the person who nominated Gibson isn't here, but Gibson, I mean, he was drafted in – I drafted him in the 6th round of a 12-man, in the 9th round of a 10-man league. Like, someone who you got very, very late, like in drafts, and was solid RB2. You know, I mean, maybe the first 3 weeks weren't that good, but once he got a couple games under his belt, like he was money in the bank.
No, I got Gibson in round 8 of a 14-man. So, and I mean, I'm biased towards Gibson just because my two running backs were McCaffrey and Fournette. And Fournette was injured for the first couple weeks, and he was not doing so well. He was playing behind Rojo, and then McCaffrey went down. So Gibson was my only running back, and he was kind of just carrying the running back load for me. So I would just I think Herbert deserved it, but I'm just biased towards Gibson because he basically was a big part of my team making the playoffs. So I love me some Antonio Gibson. And next year he's going to do amazing too, just because, like we mentioned earlier, like he definitely earned the running back job out of everybody. Because, I mean, I think Peyton Barber, like, started out as the starter to start the season, and Gibson won that job. So I think next year, you know, Redskins are going to – not Redskins, Washington football team, whatever. But they'll be better next year. Hopefully they get a quarterback that's better than Dwayne Haskins. So – that's Gibson next year.
And
They've already got one. His name's Alex Smith.
Gibson, they got rid of Adrian Peterson to make Gibson the guy, and Adrian Peterson got signed and started for the Lions with no preseason, like 1 week of practice, and so
that's what up with that. Why didn't the Lions just start Swift to start the year, man? I mean, Swift could have easily been on this list too. I mean, he had some injuries and stuff like that too, but the Lions just didn't give Swift enough playing time to start the year. You know, it was too little, too late type deal.
Well, I believe those people who made that decision are no longer making decisions for the franchise. So, you know, that might answer your question. It's a bad decision. It was just a bad decision.
That's for sure. And Antonio said, yep, Gibson going to be good on the what the fuck.
That's hilarious.
Nice. All right. We got 2 more awards here. We are starting it off with the playoff MVP, since that was only 3 weeks of the season, weeks 14 through 16. And Corey, why don't you go ahead and read off those nominees? Throw it in the chat here, guys. Who should the playoff MVP be? And let's get ready to smoke some bowls of Herbert.
All right. So we got Lamar Jackson, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, and David Montgomery. And the winner is Alvin Kamara.
Well deserved. His like week 16 performance, like above anything, like
right. You know, and again, that's probably going to be in a lot of people's minds for, you know, like the MVPs and stuff like that, because when you just finish with a bang with 6 touchdowns, to put you over 20 for the season, it's like very impressive.
He's gonna get drafted first overall in like so many leagues. Like it's gonna happen, and a lot of it's gonna be because of Week 16.
Right.
All right, and our big one of the year. Here we go. Regular season most valuable player. Throw it in the chat, guys. Who is gonna be the regular season most valuable player? Throw it in the chat now. And Brian, why don't you kick those nominees?
All right. And the nominees for the season MVP are Patrick Mahomes, Alvin Kamara, Travis Kelce, and Derrick Henry. All right. Anyone got any guesses? And the winner is Travis Kelce with 52% of the vote. He had an incredible year for a tight end. Again, 1,416 yards, 11 touchdowns for a tight end. Again, I think somebody said running back 4 and wide receiver 3 or something like that is what he finished.
Yeah.
So he dominated. He gave you that advantage in the tight end position that there is no other advantage like it. If you had a good draft and had Kelce on your team and you drafted like 2 or 3 other good players besides that, you won probably. You won a lot of championships.
What up, Iggy? What's good, bro? Yep. Kelce, he was not saying it was an unfair advantage. You had to draft him. You know, you had to spend the second round pick on him in most leagues. And I know a lot of people think that that's a foreign concept, but he gave you not just an advantage at the tight end position, which that was super clear. He gave your team, your fantasy team, such an advantage every single week, no matter what, that he definitely deserved this award. There was no player who made a bigger impact for where you drafted him than Kelce. That's for sure. Mid-second round, sometimes third round. Like, it just depends on how your tight end scoring worked.
Man, in my league, Kittle went before Kelce. So the fact that he was able to just outperform any tight end in that category. I mean, I know Kittle got injured, so there wasn't really a huge challenge for him in the points category for tight ends. But, man, Kelce earned that reward just because if you just go off of, like, matchups where it's like my tight end's better than this tight end, and then if you're going off of who you're playing, like, Kittle just gave you such a big advantage that there was never, unless your team was just complete garbage, that there was never a time where you felt like you didn't have a chance to win the week, especially with the Mahomes-Kelce stack or something ridiculous like that.
Right. If you had like a top running back, you took like Devontae Adams in the first round and then Travis Kelce in the second round, you know, you probably won a lot of leagues. Or you took like a Nick Chubb like late in the first, and then you came back down and grabbed a Kelce, or I don't know, some other great combo of like a top running back or a top wide receiver. So if you nailed the first pick, your first round, then you hit Kelce on the way back down, you dominated that league probably.
That's for sure. And I'm going to read off something here. Here's Darren Waller's weekly stats on just from yardage. Starting off at week 1, 45, 105, 9, 88, 48, 50, 27, 22, 37, 88, 23, 200, 75, 150, and 112. So Darren Waller balled at the end, but let's hear Kelce's on a week-to-week basis.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
50, 90, 87, 70, 108, 65, 31, 109, 159, 127, 82, 136, 136, 68, and 98.
That's ridiculous. What's that level? That 8-game stretch where he got over 100 like almost every time except for 1 or 2 times?
Yeah.
I just counted those. So Waller had 6 games over 80 yards. Kelce had 10 games over 80 yards.
That's money.
And, you know, Waller was clearly the second best tight end on the season. And it just goes to show the disparity in the number 1 and the number 2 tight end.
And
go ahead.
I bet the number 3 tight end didn't even have 180. I mean, there's maybe only like a couple people who have gotten 80 yards out of a tight end even once, let alone that many times.
Yeah, I mean, Logan Thomas was one of our nominees, so let's just put Thomas at number 4. Like, no one was talking about Logan Thomas as like this amazing tight end, like must start, like anybody on Hustler's live streams, you just be like Logan Thomas or Jimmy Graham, and then anybody would say Jimmy Graham because he has a better chance of getting in the end zone. So like that number 4 spot is just so iffy. I think Hawkinson is kind of good at number 3, but then at number 4 spot, it's just who's going to score the touchdown. And I bet Thomas was number 4 because he probably scored the most touchdowns.
He got like a lot of targets at the end,
Yeah.
But like, yes, after like the 5th or 6th guy, it's like a wasteland, And again, 5 and 6 are your TJ Hawkinsons, who's like 5 catches for 50 yards. That's like a good tight end, is 5 catches and 50 yards.
That's like a really, really good tight end. I looked at tight end stats all year and I hated it. It was so annoying. Most tight ends finished between 15 and 35 yards and 2 to 4 catches. Like that is the average tight end. That's even an above average tight end finishing with like 35 yards and 4 catches.
Right.
I've seen stuff where some leagues are now next year going to just get rid of the tight end position and just add an extra flex, because it is making the game less fun when you have to stream in someone like Jimmy Graham or someone that's not that good at tight ends, something like that, kind of like getting rid of the kicker position, getting rid of the tight end position. So it's becoming a wasteland.
I almost feel like I want to make the tight end like just a flex now because tight end is horrible. Like you literally have 2 and that's it. And maybe make it
next year. You'll have 3 for sure. You'll have Kelsey, Kittle, and Waller, and then you'll have like the second tier of guys, which will be Hawkinson, Andrews. I don't know. And those guys. So you're getting 5 or 6 guys, 7 guys, maybe. Jonnu Smith might be something eventually. I don't know. We'll see.
So Waller, I just checked. He had 9 games with 50 yards or less. So just to put that into perspective, like Waller the baller, like, yeah, for sure. When he went off, he went off. But that's how much of a wasteland that tight end is, that Darren Waller had under 50 yards in 9 games. I bet nobody would think that. Nobody would.
No.
Yeah, so that is nuts. And let's see what David say. I didn't even shout out Fantasy Football Wizard. What up? What up? And David said Kelsey had Mahomes, give Waller Mahomes, and he would do the same. I mean, he probably would, but
he did it with Alex Smith, though. So let's just like not say that like Kelsey's had only one good year. I think Waller's amazing, and he's a physical freak. So like I don't hate David Hess's take. I don't hate that take at all. And again, playing with like the best quarterback around is going to give you an advantage, but
But I do think if Kelsey was on the Raiders, he would still put up Darren Waller's numbers. So just having Mahomes elevates Kelsey a little bit. So you just flip those guys. They're both great talents. You just flip them teams. They just have the opposites numbers. So Kelsey's still a top 2 tight end. He's just not as good because he doesn't have Mahomes.
And Waller is a good story. I mean, I like the story, pretty much getting kicked out of football for, for doing drugs and a whole bunch of stuff. And they just randomly saw him at like a special team, a freaking practice squad. Like he got signed off of a practice squad. And yeah, it's crazy that he's doing this good, a couple years later. And Antonio said, yeah, that sounds great. No tight end spot, just a flex spot. I'm actually thinking about incorporating that next year, turning the tight end spot into a flex spot, but turning it into tight end premium to where someone like Kelsey or Kittle, they would be that much more potent. But nobody besides like the top couple guys would really get a sniff.
Right.
I honestly forget, but was tight end such a wasteland in years before? I mean, not saying it's I'm not saying it's like this much of a wasteland, but like, was it ever such as bad as it was in previous years than this year?
This year's like better than it was like 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like 5 or 6 years ago, there were none. You know, Kelsey. It was like Rob Gronkowski.
Jimmy
You know,
Graham,
Jimmy
Greg Olsen.
Graham had 2 or 3 good years. But there's always like 2 top guys. You know,
Like Antonio.
Julius Thomas had a couple good years. So like there was like a 3-year period where it was like Julius Thomas, Jimmy Graham, Rob
Olsen.
Gronkowski. You know, so
Greg Olsen was a beast. Yep. And I mean,
Greg
for
Olsen.
it was like Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez, you know, but it was always like there's like a couple guys like at the top. I mean, it's probably better now than it's been in a while because NFL is just more of a passing league than it's ever been. But athletes are just getting better. So like these wide receivers that are getting drafted and these running backs who are like turning into pass catching backs, like it takes away from the traditional tight end.
And a lot of these guys can't even block. Like a lot of these pass catchers, they can't block. So they don't even actually do like tight end things. Like Evan Ingram can't block. I know he was like a bum, but like, you know, Evan Ingram is like a starting tight end, you know, this year in fantasy, and he's, you know, not good.
Yep. All right. So we're going to smoke one more bowl, and then we are going to get out of here. So why don't we start with because I know Brian's going to smoke a bowl too. So how about we start off with Brian's closing words. Do your closing first, then we'll smoke, and then we'll kick it to Corey.
For sure. Again, I'm Brian Turner. Most of the time you can find me on the Twitter, doing all that kind of stuff, answering your questions, just kind of getting into the banter, putting in my 2 cents. So Brian Turner 1989 you could find me at. Brian Turner the football guy. That's like my Twitter handle for football. So Brian Turner football guy is my Twitter handle. You can get me there. That's pretty much it. That was a good fat rip.
Woo, woo. Yeah. Final thoughts, Corey.
Well, honestly, it was great being on here. I appreciate the invite, Alex. It's been a long time coming. Hopefully I can come back here again. This fantasy award show was awesome too. A lot of categories. So we had a lot of good topics to talk about for sure. Looking forward to next season, getting in some leagues with some guys in here and some other stuff too. But yeah, you guys find me with that Corey2Ys on Instagram if you guys want to follow. And then just for football stuff, like I'm inside the Facebook group, like Alex mentioned earlier, like I'm posting in there. Not so much now just because the football season's over. But yeah, I mean, I'm getting more acquainted with fantasy basketball stuff right now. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in it, but if you guys just want my opinion, you always message me on Facebook, just Corey Hernandez, as you see on the screen here. But solid fantasy season, and having me on.
MathQuest said, will the Bears work out a deal with Allen Robinson and Mitch Trubisky? I doubt it. Seems like they're going to go into like full rebuilding mode here pretty soon.
I could see Robinson getting the tag. But Mitch is probably out of there.
Probably. All right. Well, my closing thoughts. Fantasy prep does not stop for next year. I'm going to be coming out with at least 1 to 2 videos, per week with fantasy stuff. Just going back and recapping the season because we look at end of season stats, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So I like to dive into, some of the top guys' stats and go into what may have happened on a week-to-week basis, things that we may have forgotten about. A lot of things. I got my Hustler interviews coming up. We're going to be doing movie recaps where I'm going to be bringing people on. We're going to be talking about some sports movies, some stoner movies that we all just watched, and a lot of stuff in the works. And so I'm going to throw my link in here for the website on Patreon. Anybody wants to get in there right now, you can sign up for as little as $1. And if you sign up right now, you will get into the Discord chat because that's where everything is really at right now. Everything is in the Discord. We got a great community that we're building up. We're going to be starting some dynasty leagues here. I believe the week of the Pro Bowl is when we're going to try to start one of our dynasty league drafts since we're not going to have much to do that week. So Got a bunch of things coming. FantasyFootballHustler.com. That's another way that you can find me. We'll see you guys later. Brian, thanks for coming on, brother. I
really appreciate it. I had a great time, like always. Last few times have been a great time.
Been awesome, bro. Corey, you are the man. Finally got you on here. It's been weeks coming. Excited to get you on here. Thank your girlfriend for letting you hang out for this long.
Yeah, of course, guys. I'll be back next time, and I'll be in the Discord chat too, chatting it up to everybody.
There we go. And Antonio just shouting it out before we get out of here. The Discord is always lit 24/7. We don't sleep. We don't sleep. It's 24/7 fantasy, all types of fantasy too. We got fantasy football, got fantasy basketball, going to have fantasy baseball going in there soon. It is going down. Peace out, Antonio. I'll catch you in Discord. And peace out, everybody. We will see you later.
Later.
Are you ready, Jerry?
I'm ready.
Just want to make sure you're ready, brother. Show me the money.
Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling.
Put my shoes on, you wouldn't last a mile. Summertime, wintertime, on the grind. Yeah, I got the ring, I'm the champ, I'm the genie of the lamp. This is the gift I was given, so I just live by my hustle.
Make sense, but don't make a profit. It's all a hustle, ladies and homies. Make money, money.
Call out here for a pill. Really tryna get this money for the real.
I want to find the things in my life, so I hustle.
It ain't over for me. No, it ain't over for me.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.